In the heart of a shining kingdom stood a palace made of pale gold stone that glowed softly in the moonlight. From far away, it looked like a dream resting on a hill. Surrounded by quiet gardens and tall silver trees that whispered when the wind passed through them. At night, fireflies floated near the palace walls, making it seem as if the stars had come down to visit. Inside this palace lived 12 princess sisters, known throughout the land for their beauty, grace, and perfect manners. People often spoke about how lucky they were. Travelers told stories of their shining dresses and gentle smiles. Villagers believed the princesses lived a life without worries. They had warm beds, delicious food, and rooms filled with sunlight. Their gowns sparkled like morning dew, and their hair was always neatly brushed. But luck, as it turns out, can feel very different from the inside. The princesses shared a long, beautiful room at the top of the palace. The ceiling was painted with soft clouds and golden birds, and the floor shone like polished pearl. Tall windows opened to the stars, and soft curtains floated like clouds when the night breeze came in. Each sister had her own bed, decorated with ribbons and pillows stitched by palace artisans. During the day, the room was filled with laughter, music, gentle chatter. The sisters woke early each morning to lessons in reading, dancing, history, and royal manners. They practiced music together, sometimes filling the halls with soft melodies. They read storybooks by the window, dreaming of faraway lands and magical creatures. When visitors came, they smiled kindly and bowed politely. They followed every rule carefully. They did everything they were expected to do yet. When the sun went down and the palace grew quiet, a different feeling filled their hearts. When the candles were blown out and the guards' footsteps faded into the distance, the room felt larger, quieter, and heavier. It was during these moments that the sisters felt the weight of unspoken wishes. The silence seemed to ask questions no one dared to answer aloud. The eldest sister, Lyra, often sat by the window at night, watching the moon rise slowly above the hills. Her long hair caught the silver light, and her eyes reflected both kindness and worry. She loved her sisters deeply and felt responsible for them all. She listened when they spoke, comforted them when they were sad, and stood tall when they felt small. She was calm and graceful, but inside her chest lived a wish she could not speak aloud. She wanted to feel free, even if only for a little while. Next to her was Belen, who always tried to make the others laugh. During the day, she told silly jokes and made funny faces, earning smiles from everyone around her. But at night, her laughter softened and her eyes grew thoughtful. She wondered why happiness had to be planned and measured. Sura, the third sister, loved music more than anything. She tapped gentle rhythms on the window frame when she thought no one was watching, imagining melodies that had no rules. Dova dreamed of places beyond the palace walls, places where the horizon had no fences. Ellen loved stories of magic forests and hidden worlds. Fea twirled whenever she heard even the faintest tune, her feet unable to stay still. One by one, each sister carried her own quiet longing. Carefully hidden behind perfect smiles, they were loved, yes, but they were also watched. Palace servants followed schedules, guards stood at every corner, and rules filled the halls like invisible walls. The palace rules were heavy, like thick curtains that blocked fresh air. The king, their father, believed he was protecting them. He had lost much in his life and feared the outside world. To him, safety meant control. He believed that keeping his daughters close would keep them happy. The princesses were not allowed to wander at night. Their doors were always locked after sunset. They were told when to sleep, how to behave, and what dreams were suitable for royal daughters. Slowly, without anyone noticing, the palace began to feel less like a home and more like a beautifully decorated cage. Every morning, something strange happened. As the sun rose and light poured into the palace halls, servants would quietly open the princess's door. Each time, they froze in surprise. The 12 pairs of dancing shoes neatly placed the night before were worn thin. The soles were scratched and dusty. The ribbons were loose and frayed. It looked as if the sisters had danced until dawn. Whispers spread through the palace. How could this be? The king grew worried. He examined the shoes himself, his brow tightening with confusion. How can this be? He wondered. My daughters are safe in their room every night. The princesses only smiled politely when asked. They lowered their eyes and said nothing. Secrets, after all, are easier to keep when shared with love and trust. What no one knew was that when the palace lights dimmed and the guards' footsteps faded, the sisters' room came alive with quiet excitement. Alira would gently tap the floor 3 times, her signal that the night had truly begun. Belen would peek under her pillow, her eyes sparkling. Sura would hum a soft tune that sounded like a lullaby made of stars. Then, with a quiet click, a hidden panel beneath the rug would slowly open. A spiral staircase shimmered below, glowing with pale blue light that pulsed gently. Like a heartbeat, one by one, the princesses stepped down, holding their dresses carefully. Their hearts fluttered like tiny birds discovering open skies. As they descended, the air grew warmer and filled with music. Not loud music, but the kind that wrapped around you like a hug. The kind that made worries feel smaller. At the bottom of the stairs lay a magical world hidden beneath the palace. Crystal trees sparkled like stars frozen in time. Golden paths curved through fields of glowing flowers that hummed softly. A silver lake reflected dancing lights from above, rippling gently as if breathing. And in the center stood a grand hall, where music never stopped and joy floated freely, as natural as the air. Here, the sisters were not princesses bound by rules. They were dancers, dreamers, and friends. Their dresses flowed as they twirled, changing colors with every movement. Their laughter rang like bells across the hall. Their worries melted away with every step they took on the glowing floor. Faya spun so fast that her skirt became a colorful circle. I feel like I can fly. She laughed, her cheeks glowing. Ellen clapped her hands, her eyes wide with wonder. This place feels like a storybook that never ends. Belen danced with playful steps, pretending to trip and then bowing dramatically. Even quiet Alira smiled more here than anywhere else, her movements calm and confident, her heart finally light. Night after night they returned to this hidden world. Dance became their secret language, their way of breathing, when life above felt too tight. Each step carried their feelings, the sadness they hid, the hopes they protected, and the courage they slowly built. The magic listened to them, holding their dreams gently. But magic, as gentle as it is, can be fragile. One evening, as the sisters prepared to leave their room, Dova paused near the window. Do you feel that? She asked softly, her voice barely louder than the wind. Feel what? Belen whispered, tying her ribbon. The air, Dova replied. It feels different. They hesitated for a moment, but shrugged it off. The need to dance was stronger than doubt. They went down the stairs as usual. The underground world still sparkled, but something was wrong. The crystal trees dimmed faster than before, their light flickering. The music felt thinner, like a song losing its melody. As they danced, Sura noticed her shoes wearing out faster. She stopped and looked down, worry crossing her face. That's strange, she murmured. I barely danced an hour. Above them, in the palace, the king's worry grew heavier each day. He loved his daughters deeply, but confusion turned into frustration. He wondered if secrets were being kept from him, and that thought made his heart ache more than anger ever could. Back below, sisters gathered by the silver lake, their reflections shimmering softly. They breathed quietly, listening to the water. What if someone finds out? Ellen asked, hugging her arms. Belen tried to smile. Then we'll dance even harder, she said. Though her voice shook slightly, Alira looked at her sisters, one by one, seeing fear and hope mixed together. This place gives us joy, she said gently, but joy should not be built on fear. The others fell silent. They knew she was right, but the thought of losing this magical world hurt more than they could explain that night. As they climbed back up the staircase, the glow behind them flickered. The hidden door closed more slowly than before, as if unsure. When morning came, the servants noticed the shoes again, more worn than ever. The king stared at them, his brow furrowed with worry and sadness. Somewhere deep inside, he felt he was losing his daughters, even though they were still right there, The princesses stood together by the window, watching sunlight fill the room. Their shoes lay quietly at their feet, carrying the marks of another secret night. They held hands, feeling both happiness and fear twist together in their hearts. The magic had given them freedom, but it was asking for something in return, and none of them knew how much longer their secret world could survive. The days after that uneasy night felt different, as if the palace itself was listening more closely. The princesses still woke early, still followed their lessons, but something gentle had shifted inside them. Their smiles came more slowly, yet they were deeper. Their laughter sounded softer, more thoughtful. Even the sunlight that poured through their shared room seemed to pause, as if waiting to see what choice they would make next. At night, the sisters gathered together before the hidden staircase, sitting in a loose circle on the floor. No one rushed. No one twirled with excitement like before. Instead, they talked. Sura spoke about how music should be shared, not hidden. Dova admitted she was tired of dreaming alone. Ellen said she wanted to believe that honesty could feel as magical as secrecy. Faya, usually the most playful, sat quietly, tracing patterns on the rug with her finger. Alira listened to them all. She felt the weight of being the eldest, but she also felt something new: hope. Not the kind that sparkles loudly, but the kind that grows strong roots. That night, they decided to go down one last time without pretending everything was fine. The staircase opened with a slower glow, like a lantern at the end of a long road. When they reached the hidden world, it welcomed them gently. The crystal trees shimmered, but their light was calm, not bright. The golden paths no longer hummed, but they felt warm underfoot. The silver lake reflected the sisters clearly, showing not just their dresses, but their expressions. They danced slowly, not to escape, but to speak. Each step felt like a sentence. Each turn felt like a truth being shared. The magic responded by forming soft lights around them, swirling patiently, as if listening. Then something new happened. The lights gathered near the lake and shaped themselves into glowing ripples, like circles spreading across water. The sisters felt the message clearly this time, not in words, but in feeling. The magic was not meant to replace their lives. It was meant to remind them of who they were. Ellen's eyes filled with tears. It doesn't want us to hide anymore. Aline nodded. It wants us to be brave. Up there. Alira placed her hand on the glowing surface of the lake. Then we must be honest, she said softly, even if it's hard. Above them, the king stood awake, staring at the ceiling of his chamber. The image of the worn shoes would not leave his mind. Neither would the memory of his daughter's laughter when they were young or loud, messy and free. He rose quietly and walked through the halls without calling anyone. The palace felt strange at night, without guards, voices, or echoing steps. When he reached the princess's room and noticed the slight movement of the rug, his heart beat faster, not with anger, but with worry and curiosity. He knelt, lifted the rug, and froze. The staircase glowed gently, as if it had been waiting for him. With careful steps, he followed it downward. Each step felt like walking into a forgotten part of himself. When he reached the bottom, the magic wrapped around him warmly. He saw the crystal trees, the glowing flowers, and then he saw his daughters. They were dancing, but slowly, thoughtfully. When they noticed him, the music softened and stopped. For a moment, no one spoke. Boleyn broke the silence by whispering, "Well, this is awkward." King almost laughed, surprised by how familiar her humor felt. Alira stepped forward. Her hands shook, but she stood tall. "Father," she said, "we never wanted to hurt you." The king looked at their faces, nervous, hopeful. Honest and suddenly the mystery of the shoes didn't matter anymore. "I should have asked why," he said quietly. Instead of only asking how, sisters told him everything. Not all at once, not perfectly, but truthfully. About feeling safe but unseen. About how dancing helped them breathe. About how the magic world listened when they felt unheard. The king listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't raise his voice. He sat by the silver lake and listened until the truth settled into his heart. "I was afraid," he admitted at last. "I thought love meant keeping you close. I forgot that love also means letting you grow." The magic brightened, warm and joyful, filling the hall like a sunrise. Then the king did something unexpected. He stood and took a careful step onto the glowing floor. His movements were stiff at first. His foot slipped slightly, and Bélline couldn't help giggling. "Your Majesty," she said playfully, "you're supposed to follow the rhythm." Smiled a real smile, not a royal one. "Then I'll need teachers." The sisters laughed, and soon they were guiding him gently, showing him the steps. His movements grew lighter. The magic swirled happily around them, no longer burdened by secrets. When morning came, the palace felt different. The shoes were no longer worn thin. The servants noticed, but this time they smiled instead of gasping. The king gathered the palace together and made an announcement that surprised everyone. Music would no longer be locked behind schedules. The gardens would stay open in the evenings. Dance, art, and stories would be welcomed. The hidden world did not disappear. Instead, it rested, glowing softly beneath the palace, no longer fading, no longer strained. It had done what it was meant to do. The princesses danced openly now, sometimes in the gardens, sometimes in the great hall. Their joy felt lighter without fear following it. Faya still spun whenever music played. Sura composed melodies that echoed through the palace. Dova planned journeys beyond the walls with her father's blessing. Ellen wrote stories inspired by the magic below, and Alira watched them all with a peaceful heart. The palace no longer felt like a cage. It felt like home.